Siddhaswarupananda, Paramahamsa Namute, Karuna Swarupaya, Bhagavan Krsna Krsnaya Te. Nama Siddhaswarupananda, Paramahamsa Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Dayanya, Krsna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Dayanya, Krsna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Dayanya, Jaya Jaya Guru Devi, Jaya Jaya Sarada. Jaya Jaya Goranga, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Goranga, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Goranga, Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa, Jaya Jaya Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa, Jaya Jaya Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa, Jaya Jaya Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa, Vande Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Advaita Gadadhara, Shivate Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Vande Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivate Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Gopala Govinda Rama, Krsna Madana Mohana, Prepara Govinda Rama, 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 Madana Mohana. Para Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. Namo Siddhaswarupananda, Paramahamsa Nandini, Gora Karuna Swarupaya, Radha Krishna Krsna. Namo Siddhaswarupananda, Paramahamsa Nandini, Gora Karuna Swarupaya, Radha Krishna Krsna.
So I'll continue reading the pastimes of Lord Krishna so we can finish and complete the story of his pastimes. It's a short story already because we've been discussing it for almost a week. But I like to reiterate something that we should be very aware. I'll give you an analogy or an example. In first world countries, they have big pasturing ground, and at a time that the cows or the fowls or the sheep are mature enough to be sold. So they send them to the slaughterhouse. So it's a very big place. At the end of the slaughterhouse, all the cows are walking there. And the cows are, eating some grass, walking. And at the end, there's this setup wherein there's this, not unlike in the Philippines. In the Philippines, it's quite different, They put when the cows goes to the slaughterhouse, they put the head in a clump. The cow cannot move, so they hold the head, and there's this machete, cut off his throat. But in the Western world, as you can see in how they treat, how they kill, murder the cows. They're telling us it's humane because the cow did not experience the anxiety just like what in the third world country are experiencing. They're packed in a place, and then their throats are slit. And then when the throat is slit already, they there's this hook, pulls the cow up, and then it passed through this area wherein they cut the skin and chop it into pieces and put it into different saleable items like no bones, ribs, like that. But in the Western world, they have this stun gun. So the cows are walking. They don't know that at the end of that, there's these pens, and they walk talking with one another. Wow, the grass where it came from is very sweet, I have a lot of friends there, but now I'm here, my master sent me here, and I don't know where I'm going. Okay, let's just follow this because everybody's moving forward towards at the end of this fence, And at the end, those guys who are working in the slaughterhouse, they have stun gun. And when the cows come in, the head is put there, and it's clamp, and then choom, here, dead. Then they clamp out, they put a hook and pull it up, goes again, and chop it into pieces to be sold in groceries, wherein it's packed already, the meat and everything. But the point I'm trying to discuss here is not about the slaughterhouse. It's about us. We have problems, and the problems we are facing is we're in this world, a big slaughterhouse. We have to face death. All our endeavor to accumulate, to find security, at the end, we have to leave it behind. We have to face death. So there's a problem we're facing now. Just like when a person is sick. For example, you have colds. And then it's getting worse and worse. So you go to the doctor and he gives you antibiotic to kill the bacteria or the virus. And not only that, he gives you cough syrup so the inflammation on your chest of the lungs can subside and your fever will subside. So there's this fever that can be cured through the medicine that the doctor is giving. So now we have also this problem here in this material world. We have this high fever of lust, trying to find fulfillment in this material world. And our focus is upon this material world. So I'll read to you here how we can get out of this big slaughterhouse that we're in, but we think it's cool, it's cool. Because most of the time, our effort is trying to find a solid platform wherein our bodies can be secured in the form of money, economic development, in the form of fame, in the form of getting land and everything. We get stuck in this world, and this world is a planet of death. So we have this, now it is, opening our eyes. Just like these two cows walking, talking together, moo, moo, I brought some grass already, I can share it with you, But they don't know what they're facing. They're gonna get killed. So it's an open secret. Because if you, like here in our place, in Mindanao, in Kibawe, I used to bring children, before the COVID time, I go fetch children with the school bus. And I pass how many cemetery? 1, 2, 3. 3 cemeteries. And every time I pick up the young boys, the young kids, because they need to be sheltered and protected because they're mindless. They follow their mind, so I have to drive and protect them and bring them to school, wherein we can put them in a room wherein the teacher can guide them. So every day I pass by and look at the cemetery. And when I go there, I read, born 2020, pass away under the grace of the Lord. And then there's this angel, and they're telling he's with the Lord. So hopefully, So my point is, I'm trying to discuss this to open to all of us that we are in a very precarious and dangerous situation, and we think it's cool to be here. And how do we solve our problems? By being like that rabbit. When the danger is there, what do the rabbit do? He closes his eyes. No, that. Or the ostrich, there's danger. The wolf, bad wolf is there. He just burrow his head under the ground, trying to make believe. So while we're here, illusion is so strong, Maya is so strong, that we think we are all powerful, we can make it. But in reality, our state is hopeless because we have to enter that door wherein, like the cows, get slaughtered. Consciousness of material existence can be compared to sleeping and dreaming. When a man sleeps, he dreams of many non-factual happenings, and as a result of dreaming, he becomes subjected to different kinds of distress and happiness. Similarly, when a person is in the dreaming condition of material consciousness, he suffers the effect of accepting a body and giving it up again in material existence. Opposite to this material consciousness is Krishna consciousness. In other words, when a man is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness, he becomes free from the false conception of life. When one is aware of his relationship with the Supreme Person. In this way, Sri Balaram instructed them in spiritual knowledge. He addressed his sister-in-law thus, sweet smiling Rukmini, do not be aggrieved by the false motives caused by ignorance. Due to false notion, only one becomes unhappy. But this unhappiness is immediately removed by discussing the philosophy of actual life. Be happy on the platform only. Upon hearing such enlightening instruction from Sri Balaram, Rukmini immediately became pacified and happy and adjusted her mental condition, which was very much afflicted by seeing the degraded position of her brother Rukmi. As far as Rukmi was concerned, neither was his promise fulfilled nor his mission successful. He had come from home with his soldiers and military phalanx to defeat Krsna and release his sister, but on the contrary, he lost all his soldiers and military strength. He was personally degraded, and in that condition he was very sorry. But by the grace of the Lord, he could continue his life to the fixed destination. Because he was a Kshatriya, he could remember his promise that he would not return in the capital city, Kundina, without killing Krishna and releasing his sister, which he had failed to do. Therefore, he decided in anger not to return to the capital, and he constructed a small cottage in the village known as Bojakata and began to reside there for the rest of his life. After defeating all the opposing elements and forcibly carrying away Rukmini, Krishna brought her to the capital city, Dwarka, and then married her according to the Vedic ritualistic principles. After this marriage, Krishna became the king of the Yadus at Dwarka. On the occasion of his marriage with Rukmini, all the inhabitants were happy, and every house there were great ceremonies. The inhabitants of Dwarka city became so pleased that they dressed themselves with the nicest possible ornaments and garlands, and they went to present gifts according to their means to the newly married couple, Krishna and Rukmini. All the houses of Yadupuri, Dwarka, were decorated with flags, festoons, and flowers. Each and every house had an extra gate specifically prepared for this occasion. And on both sides of the gate, there were big water jugs filled with water. The whole city was flavored by the burning of high-quality incense. At that night, there was illumination by thousands of lamps, decorating each and every building. The entire city appeared jubilant on the occasion of Lord Krishna's marriage with Rukmini. Everywhere in the city, there was profuse decoration of banana trees and betel nut trees. These two trees are considered very auspicious in happy ceremonies. At the same time, there was an assembly of many elephants who carried the respective kings of different friendly kingdoms. It is the habit of the elephant that wherever he sees some small plants and trees, out of his sportive, frivolous nature, he uproots the tree and throws them hither and thither. The elephants assembled on this occasion also scattered the banana and betel nut trees. But in spite of such intoxicated action, the whole city, with trees thrown here and there, looked very nice. The friendly kings of the Kurus and the Pandavas were represented by Dhritarashtra, the 5 Pandu brothers, King Drupada, King Santanardana, as well as Rukmini's father, Bhismaka. Because of Krishna's kidnapping, Rukmini, there was initially some misunderstanding between the two families. But Bhismaka, king of Vidarbha, being approached by Srila Balaram and persuaded by many saintly persons, was induced to participate in the marriage ceremony of Krishna and Rukmini. Although the incidents of Krishna's kidnapping was not a very happy occurrence in the kingdom of Vidarbha, kidnapping was not an unusual affair among the Kshatriya or warriors. Kidnapping was in fact current in almost all marriages. Anyway, King Bhismaka was from the very beginning inclined to hand over his beautiful daughter to Krishna. In one way or another, his purpose has been served, and so was pleased to join the marriage ceremony. Even though his eldest son was degraded in the fight, it is mentioned in the Padma Purana that Maharaj Nanda and the cowherd boys of Vrindavan joined the marriage ceremony. Kings from the kingdom of Kuru, Srinjaya, Kekaya, Vidarbha, and Kunti came to Dwarka on this occasion with all their royal paraphernalia. The story of Rukmini's being kidnapped by Krishna was poeticized, and the professional readers recited it everywhere. All the assembled kings, and especially their daughters, were struck with wonder and became very pleased upon hearing the chivalrous activities of Krishna. In this way, all the visitors, as well as the inhabitants of Dwarka city, became joyful seeing Krishna and Rukmini together. In other words, the Supreme Lord, the maintainer of everyone, and the goddess of fortune were united, and all the people felt extremely jubilant. Thus end of Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 19th chapter of Krishna. Krishna defeats all the princes and takes Rukmini home. We have been reading the pastimes of the Supreme Person many years back and up to now to remember the qualities, the love, the protection, the compassion of how Lord Govinda, Gopala, Krishna, Madhusudana, Shyamasundar loves his devotees, protects his devotees. So this is an important formula for us to follow. Just like when one is sick with fever and it's bronchitis and pneumonia and comes and approach a doctor, he takes the medication that is given so the virus will die and be nil and be gone. And not only that, the cough syrup will be the balm to take care of the inflamed lungs. So when one takes the medication, he finds relief from the disease or the afflicted disease upon his body. When one is sick, very sick, and the body temperature is so high, one becomes delirium. I can still remember when I was a kid, relatively speaking, when I was in a young boy's body, just like Jaden. I have bouts with high fever and really having this dream, I cannot really see clearly, and the fever is so high, and my mom takes care of my body by giving me a bath of water and also medicine to help me become free from the afflicted fever that is tormenting my body, and I am inside this body experiencing this pain, the cough, the fever, and I am in delirium, and I dream so many things that's really horrible. In a dreaming state, when one is in a disease condition, under the infliction of the virus, when it subsides, he can see clearly. So the problem, the greatest disease that has afflicted us is materialism. And the effect is false bodily identification and trying to play Lord. we have forgotten our true nature as eternally the loving servant of the Supreme Person, completely dependent upon His love, upon His care. So I'll read here what we should understand when we come in contact with God and His confidential loving servant. How we can be free from this materialistic disease, this materialism. Because Krishna Himself will be the one to cure us from this material disease if we simply follow the medication or the process that is being given to us. Association with pure devotees. We always talk about devotees. Everybody is a devotee, but we're talking here about pure devotees who have no material consideration. Someone who is a pure loving servant of God, a resident of the spiritual world. Association with them is based upon their instruction. And if we apply the instruction they give us, we become free from this material disease. Because we experience a higher taste, that the mind, the desire, becomes directed now and become purified, and the desire that we have now will be transcendental desire to do and experience rendering loving service to the Lord. In this age of Kali Yuga, mantra meditation to draw the mind away from matter, and the medicine that will draw away the mind from matter into connecting our life with Krishna is God Himself, the holy names. That is the process in this age of Kali Yuga. It's so simple, but it becomes very difficult when we're not progressing, we're not getting cured. Because the more we chant the holy names, the more we become purified, the more we experience the happiness of our heart connected with longing, meditating, doing, reciprocating in love with Krishna, the Supreme Person, sweet Lord Krishna, Govinda. So the process we follow is a very scientific process. A certain activity leads to a certain consciousness, and a certain consciousness leads to a certain activity. So now our activities in this material world is focused upon this temporary world. So how can we be guided to draw the mind away from this material world? It's very hard. By our own power, no way. Only God can protect us, can help us. And He comes as His instruction. His instruction will be the medicine, will be the balm that will soothe the heart. It will give us a higher taste. It can draw the mind away from this dead world. We've been here for so long, undergoing birth, death, disease, and old age. We're eternal. We will never die. We will continue to exist. So we should ask this question. I'm eternal. How come I am trying to find my security in this temporary world? What has become precious to us so much that we have become so much engrossed that we cannot, set aside material desires. We have become in love so much of our bodies. And our goal now is to satisfy our unlimited craving for real happiness, for life, for love in this temporary material world. We cling to the body with all the suffering and pain. Because we don't have a clarity of what is really sweet a clarity of who we are in a transcendental world that we can be living and experiencing loving reciprocation with the Supreme Person that will fulfill what is being lost to us while we are in meditation, when our mind is simply fulfilling the desire in our mind and trying to use this field of activity, this body, to suck in, to be able to fulfill our unlimited craving for that loving relationship with the Supreme Person. So the more you chant, the more you see in clarity how stupid we are. We become a moron. We're trying to take shelter where there is none. It's like trying to embrace. Look clearly, this form. I have this form now, male form, and if I am in ignorance, I get attracted to another form. I embrace that form. I love you. I will take shelter of you. You leave the body. Only the form is embracing that form. Now, if two of you live together, you leave this body. Two forms embracing one another. And that form made out of matter, due to this law of conservation of energy, everything that is material is being transformed into another form because it's made out of atoms. And the building blocks, two bodies embracing, will break down. When the living entity leaves the body, this complex, the law of thermodynamics, that the body is so complex, there's so much heat. When the living entity leaves the body, it breaks down and turns into simpler form. The building blocks that's making up this body. So now look clearly. We're trying to take shelter of these building blocks. And these building blocks will separate. Then we're at the loss. And when we are focused in meditation upon these building blocks, then we experience the pain of death, the pain of losing all our endeavor to secure happiness. We will never succeed. But we set it aside because there is a force that has contaminated us, material disease. Because of our envy of God, we want to imitate God. We want to do our own will. That's the point. Even when we engage in the process of devotional service, it's about our own will. The living entity who is in material consciousness is a fruitive worker. He wants to take and taste the fruits of his action. He endeavors so much to get the things that he wants. Because he's thinking, if I get this, I can be in control, I can be happy. So when we come in contact with the process of devotional service, in the beginning, it's all about us. We want to become purified. We want to experience relief and relieve from this pain. And then it's all about us. Everything we do, because of material consideration, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, it's all about me. So the more we come in contact with the Supreme Purifier, the holy names, the mantra, God's gift to us, Himself, descending to this world, coming to this world through the lips of His pure devotee, God Himself, through the instructing spiritual master, coming to us, to assist us, to bring us back where there is no death. But it will be a struggle when we don't take the medication. We don't associate with pure loving servants of the Supreme Person who can purify us. So the first qualification that, because there are a lot of people who pose themselves to assist us. They want to save the world. They want followers. But a devotee, he loves us. He wants us to experience the life, the world that He is living, rendering pure devotional service to the Supreme Person. That's why the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam is not contaminated with material imperfection. It is transcendental, and it has the power to purify our heart and give us a taste for which we are always anxious. We're always anxious to find fulfillment. So I'll read here the benefit of associating with the pure devotees of God. Meaning, the resident of the spiritual world coming to this world. Krishna coming to this world. Because you cannot separate His pure loving servant with Lord Krishna. That's why when Lord Jesus Christ came, He tells everybody, if you see me, you will see the one who sent me. If you reject me, the Father who sent me will also reject you. So it's a word of love. You love someone, somebody comes and bully that person, and for example, a young girl, as what we have been discussing, you have a suitor, comes and then bullies you love your brother or your lovable sister, young sister, bullies them, Will you love that person? Will you accept that person care or what he wants? No. There must be harmony where everyone is in parallel, amiably rendering devotional, loving service to the Supreme Person. God Himself will reveal Himself to us. He's a person. How much we desire the Supreme Person, how much we want to know Him, and if we follow the path, the medication that the doctor is giving us, Krishna will be very pleased, and He will reveal Himself to us according to our faith, our loving surrender. Association with the pure devotees. Although many different processes for developing love of Godhead has been explained so far, Srila Rupa Goswami gives us a general description of how one can best achieve such a high position. The beginning of ecstatic love of Godhead is basically faith. There are many societies and associations of pure devotees. And if someone with just a little faith begins to associate with such societies, his advancement to pure devotional service is rapid. The influence of a pure devotee is such that if someone comes to associate with him with little faith, one gets the chance of hearing about the Lord from the authoritative scriptures like Bhagavad Gita as it is and Srimad Bhagavatam, put into writing by God Himself, Lord Vyasadeva, translated by our instructing spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who is the dearmost, the life of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, Jagad Guru Siddhaswarupananda. Thus, by the mercy of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, one gradually develops his faith in the description of such authoritative scriptures. One begins to, like here, you read books, you become attracted, but after a while, there's no life there, you disregard it. But if you study the pastimes of Lord Krishna, the authoritative scriptures, then your attraction becomes enhanced. Your longing for the Supreme Person, you become enthused that even though it's very hard, encumbered by this body, and you feel separation from Him, but you don't give up because you experience the taste of that loving remembrance, because that is the connection with our life, with our heart. So while we are struggling, oh, it's so hard, chanting, waking up in the morning, we level up. We become attracted. Just like when a person gets cured from his disease, he's now in his normal state. So our state now is really abnormal because we are so much engrossed and contaminated by material disease or false bodily identification and activities that we have done that has made our heart very hard. So we must purify our heart, the covering that covers us. And the Supreme Purifier, Krsna, and associating with His loving servant will motivate us because by associating with them, we become purified. Just like what we have discussed, a certain activity leads to a certain consciousness, and a certain consciousness leads to a certain activity. Just like, for example, if someone reads porno magazine, X-rated magazine, watch X-rated movies, what will he do? His lust becomes so much burning, and then he rapes. He sees anyone, moving or non-moving, something to consume and eat. That's a materialist. Because of focusing one's mind. The mind is drawn upon this material world, and the longing for fulfillment is directed upon this temporary world, and there is always the reaction of good and bad karma, and not only that, the influence of the three modes of material nature. Just like what we have discussed, you're blind, you're inside this coconut shell, you cannot get out. You're drowning in this ocean of material misery, in this ocean drowning, you cannot get out. You cannot swim your way out. But the mind is very strong. You can try the mind, try. Who succeeded. And you can check that in yourselves. What is your formula? Will your formula be the fake medicine or the real medicine? Thus, by the mercy of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, one gradually develops his faith in description of such authoritative scriptures. This is the first stage of association with pure devotees. In the second stage, after one becomes a little advanced and mature, he automatically offers to follow the principles of devotional service under the guidance of the pure devotee and accept him as spiritual master. In the next stage, under the guidance of the spiritual master, the devotee executes regular devotional service, and as a result of such activities, he becomes freed from all unwanted occupation. When he is freed from all unwanted occupation, his faith becomes steadily fixed, and he develops a transcendental taste for devotional service, then attachment, then ecstasy, and in the last stage, there is pure love of Godhead. These are different stages of development of pure love. So you can check that. We can check that if we're getting well. If our attraction now is now a longing for God. And it was exemplified by Lord Chaitanya when he was here. If you look closely, his meditation upon the Supreme Person is a meditation of loving separation. He was given instruction by his spiritual master just to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Because the spiritual master, he playing the role of an ordinary person. His spiritual master, his divine grace, his Varapuri, advise him, chant the Maha mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But that mantra is been going on eternally, supported by the teachings of the saintly person, the scripture, and this mantra is the sum total of everything, spiritual or material, because it's God Himself. So, the spiritual master tells Lord Chaitanya, because you're less intelligent, chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And everybody, Lord Chaitanya, wherever he goes, he defeats all the debater. He's a great Pandit. There's his story wherein whenever this disciple of the goddess of learning, he goes around, defeats everybody with, debate. And whenever he goes there, or wherever he goes, all the great debater, the learned men, make parang pasumangil. Oh, I have to visit my auntie, I have to visit my daughter. So they won't be confronted with this great pandit riding on an elephant. And he came to Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya, he instructed Lord Chaitanya for days, bombarding him with all the Vedas. And Lord Chaitanya is just listening. And he said, are you understanding, or do you understand what I'm trying to, to bubble to you, blah, 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 thousands and thousands of verses. Lord Chaitanya, yes. I'd just like to ask one question. You said in one of the verse, and Lord Chaitanya reminded him of that verse, and this great Pandit, who is the disciple of the goddess of learning, cannot recall what he said. And he got confused. And he was defeated by Nimai Pandit. And the reason all these great Pandits in their place left, because if he gets defeated by Nimai Pandit, it shows that he's no big deal. He's just defeated by someone who's a young Pandit. A learned debater, So he prayed to the goddess of learning, my dear master, how come I'm defeated by Nimai Pandit? You know what the goddess of learning said to him? The person whom you're trying to lecture, the person whom you're trying to teach, is the source of knowledge, my master. Lord Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, from me comes remembrance and forgetfulness. So when we are sincere, with faith, follow, render service to his pure, loving, confidential friend, Krishna sees that. He becomes very pleased. He gives us knowledge and wisdom. He lets us remember the teachings that the Parampara or Krishna is teaching to us now. It's eternal, living knowledge. For example, you have heard the knowledge about the wisdom of your true identity. 40 years from now or 50 years from now, at the time you're facing death, and at the time you have highlights chanting, you're very happy chanting, experiencing longing, surrender to the Supreme Person, looking at the face of Lord Chaitanya during that, even for that moment, a long time ago, you see the smile of Lord Chaitanya. And at the time you're leaving the body, Krishna gives you remembrance. You can recall. It's Krishna who will be guiding us. It's Krishna who will be embracing us. That's why it's very important to understand first our true eternal nature. I am life. I'm eternal. And my position is I'm eternally the loving servant of the Supreme Person. And when we have realized that and understand, we can be secured with the teaching of someone who loves him, our Guru Dev. We can take shelter of his instruction, and that instruction will be what we can hold on eternally. Because it's connected with our heart, with our life. It is where we can take shelter and direct and repose our whole being with calm, no worry. Only the most fortunate can achieve such success in life. So we are given this fortune. Just like we have discussed last time, when someone came to the house of, I think, Rupa or Sanatan Goswami, looking for the touchstone. And he said, I heard you have this touchstone. why? Yes, I want to see it, because touchstone, when it touch metal, it becomes gold. And he said, can I see it? Where is it? Said, at the back. And then when he came at the back, there's this heap pile of garbage. It's just there by the side. And he said, how come it's just here? And he came back. How come the touchstone is just beside the garbage, where we put the garbage? And he's bringing, how come it's just there? And he's really intent into having it, because gold is synonymous with money. With money, it's synonymous with control. You can have material amenities. You can buy intelligent people to run your company, You can have someone who's, if you are married, you can have many mistresses and build houses for them, It's synonymous with control. But how come this person is not interested? So Rupa Goswami said, put it back there, and I'll teach you what is the greatest fortune that is there. So here, only the most fortunate person can achieve such success in life. Appreciate how such development takes place. In the Narada Pancharatra, Lord Shiva therefore tells Parvati, my dear Supreme Goddess, you may know from me that any person who has developed the ecstasy of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always merged in transcendental bliss on account of his love, cannot even perceive material distress or happiness coming from the body and the mind. That is what I'm trying to point. That is the process we should be engaging in. The mantra meditation of the chanting of the Maha Mantra, because it will draw the mind away from matter. And what do we experience in this world? It is what Lord Shiva is telling us. It will free us from the distress and happiness coming from the body and the mind. Because now the living entity, you, can experience your connection with what is inseparable from you. This love, this rendering loving service, the joy of pleasing someone. And that person is eternal. That person is the source of life, Krsna, the source of all happiness and joy. So, we're very fortunate in this lifetime while you're traveling in this planet of death. And if we can appreciate that the time that is given to us temporary in this body is God's love for us. To be in this body, it's not anymore, wow, I want to get out of this body, but I can use now this body, use my senses, that has been so much focused upon this temporary dead world. I can use now the senses that will give me life. This body that has been my master can be used now to bow. I can use my head to bow down on the lotus feet of Krsna and be taken shelter, that Krsna will put his lotus feet upon me with his instruction, and my heart is sheltered with this love. That is the greatest fortune we have. So it's not about joining a group. The problem with joining or following, you don't need to undergo the austerity, the sacrifice, to meditate, to focus upon what is lacking, what has been disconnected from us. Because you just join. Because the mind will now be directing you. You will not go to this relationship of loving surrender and experiencing this humbleness. My Lord, please take care of me. I'm lost in this world. Please hold my hand, hold me and embrace me. But if you just join, then I'm born again. You can be born again in this material world, on and on and on. To be born again, on and on and on. So that is not the process. The process is what our instructing spiritual master is teaching us. The taste of the pudding is in the eating. There's this pudding cake, what's this? Raspberry cake with all the pistachio nut, and I'm holding it in front of you. And you're looking at it. they call it the devil's cake because it's chocolate, dark chocolate. And I tell this cake is so delicious. And you look, how come it's dark? And you just look from the outside. So our instructing spiritual master is telling us. And it is not just belief. It is God Himself who engaged in that practice and experience this loving relationship, the taste of having this sweetness of being separated, but still rendering loving service, of devotional service. So while we are in this world separated, supposedly, from our loved one, Lord Krishna, but in a truest sense, we are not separated. We are separated because of our material conditioning. We use this material energy which belongs to God to try to dominate and exploit it. And that separates us from the sweetness of rendering loving service. When we look at time, we don't see such Krishna's love for us. That we are there's time. I can use this time to engage in loving service, to be connected with my love, with my master, to do His will, to embrace Him. So we must become free from this material disease. And the process itself is the beginning, and it will be the end, because we will be tasting what is really sweet, what has been lost, what has been covered, our love, which is very precious. We are all selfish. It's all about us. Now, we should be very selfish to give our love to Krishna. So we can be protected, to have this foundation of shelter, refuge, the warmth of transcending the miseries and happiness of the desire and the mind. Is it clear? Is it clear? So I'll recap. The affection and dealings of love that are different branches of the original tree of love precede many varieties of affectionate manifestation that will not be discussed here. The process is a descending method. So if I read scripture and I talk about love of Radha and Krishna and loving separation, the topmost loving relationship of purity, it's said here, let's start first in the beginning. First, we must start in the beginning. Associate and hear from someone who's loving the Supreme Person and become His apprentice, become His follower. Not what we see here as followers of different church and organization. Join us so the more we have these members, the more we are strong. No, it's not like that. Our strength will be based upon our connection, our love with the Supreme Person. And it's up to us as individuals to check if I'm making that progress. And we can also check. When we chant, we can draw the mind away from matter and we can see the effort we should be doing to focus upon taking the medicine of the Maha Mantra. But if we are just, are not purified from this selfishness, this material conditioning, we won't take advantage of this great fortune. Then we will be like the cows entering that, at the end of the tunnel. Those who will slaughter them are just waiting, smoking, drinking beer. Oh, they're coming, these cows from Minnesota or cows from Bukidnon. They're coming, Let's prepare, Call all the workers, prepare so we can slaughter them. These different manifestations have been described by Sanatana Goswami in Bhagavad Tamrita. Although the subject of such affection and dealings of love is very confidential, Sanatana Goswami has described them very explicitly. Srila Rupa Goswami thus conclude the first division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, offering up this treatise or this knowledge for transcendental pleasure of Sanatana Goswami, who established the transcendental beauty of Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Srila Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, and Raghunatha Das Goswami. It appears from this statement that the great Srila Jiva Goswami has not yet was not yet active when Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was written. Thus, end of Bhaktivedanta summary of the study of the first division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu up to the description of ecstatic love of Godhead, which are to follow next. So, if you see our study program, we have established first our true transcendental nature. So, we can now conclude, I am life. How come I'm trying to find happiness and fulfillment in this temporary world? And it's not giving me happiness. And second is our true, eternal, inseparable relationship with the Supreme Person. That all of us has this inseparable desire with life to render loving service. Now it's misdirected upon this temporary form. And not only that, we render service, we give our love to someone who is not self-sufficient. And not only that, we want to portray ourselves as self-sufficient and get that person love. So the system is watering the root of the tree, so all the leaves and branches will be nourished if we render loving service to the Supreme Person. Your wife, your husband, all of them will be satisfied. It will be Krishna himself who will be the driver of our life, who will take care of us. That is the process of associating and following the instruction of the saintly person who are pure loving servants of the Supreme Person. Because if you are not loving the Supreme Person, you don't know the Supreme Person. How can you speak about the Supreme Person? How can you speak about love when you don't know what love is? So now we can check in ourselves where I'm directed. Will I be directed by the mind, or I want now to be directed by the will, by the words, by the teaching, by the desire of God? So the teachings of Lord Jesus Christ, love the Father with thy whole heart, thy whole mind, thy whole being, we can now check if we are progressing towards that goal. And not only that, when Lord Jesus Christ tells us, if you reject me, the Father who sent me will reject you. If you see me, you'll see the Father. So if you look at the life of Jesus, how can you enter that world? His sacrifice, his endeavor, how he offered his life, his motivation, how he relates to us. So we can see in ourselves if we fall far short, meaning if we are falling far short, then we must make effort to chant more, so the mind will be drawn away from matter and be drawn towards what we're longing and seeking, our love and affection in loving reciprocation with Govinda or Krishna. So is it clear to you? So now you have this choice. All of us have this choice. To follow the instruction of the doctor so our disease can be cured. And not only that, to see our predicament in this big slaughterhouse. We can turn our back and I want to go home, I want to go home. I don't want here. But if you're not with wisdom, how can you go home when you think you're the body? And even though the teachings that we have been programmed for so long, resurrection of the dead, it's all about the body. At the time of resurrection, the coming of who will save us, they call it the coming of Christ. All those who are dead in millions and millions and billions in their graves will stand up. Like zombie pipe. Boom, 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 boom. So it's up to you. It's up to us to make a choice. And the spiritual master, Krsna, and our Gurudev is begging us, please chant the holy names of Krishna. Please, begging us to be knowing more about our true identity and experiencing the sweetness of rendering loving service to the Supreme Person. And He gives us this process, God Himself, Krishna, the holy names. Haribol Namaste.
Namo Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Ora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate
Namo Siddhaswarupananda, Paramahamsa Namine, Ora Karuna Swarupaya, Radha Krishna Prasayate.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayana
Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayana, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayana.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda